Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be showing you how to install Windows 11 in VirtualBox in 2023. So, this is a tutorial that I make every single year, and the reason why I do that is because number one, it's a pretty popular request, and number two, VirtualBox changes a lot and the new software and all that stuff. We have VirtualBox 7 now this year, so let's go ahead and see what that looks like. But to get started here, as usual, you're going to need a couple of things. So first thing here, we have VirtualBox, of course. So I'll put all these links in the description so you can easily access them yourself. But VirtualBox.org, VirtualBox is free, so all you have to do is hit the download VirtualBox 7. You're going to get this page up here. And you're going to look in this section where you have the different platforms, and something very nice to note now is, look, we now have ARM support for Apple Silicon, so that is pretty nice. Of course, though, this is a beta preview. I'm not sure how well it runs because I do not have a Apple Silicon device that we're using today. But you might be watching this video and you're not on a Mac. That's okay. If you're on a Windows PC or something else, it's going to work pretty much the same kind of way. So if you're on a Windows computer, you'll click the Windows Host download button. If you're on a Mac that runs Intel, you'll click this one. And if you want to try out a Apple Silicon one, you can try that. There's also Linux and Solaris. So yeah, we're on a Mac today, so we're going to click on the macOS Intel host, and when you do that, it will download it for you. Then you open it up and you install it like you would any other application on macOS or Windows if you're on Windows. And once it gets downloaded, you can open it up, and it's going to look a little something like this. Now, you're not going to see this or any of this because I already have a Windows 8.1 virtual machine. Yours will be blank. It'll probably say something like create a new virtual machine or something like that. In order to create a Windows 11 VM, we're going to need a copy of Windows 11. So again, I'll put this link in the description as well, but Microsoft, just like Windows 10, allows you to download Windows 11 for free and use it without a product key. So that is very nice. You're going to scroll down here, though. You're going to see this section where it says Windows 11 Disk Image ISO. So this is what you want. Now, it's important to note, I do not think, I can't remember if the Apple Silicon is working too well with 64-bit. I don't know. But it's in beta, so I'm sure they'll work it out eventually. But you just hit select download, Windows 11, right there, hit download. It'll ask you what language, and then it's just going to download that file to your downloads folder. It's that simple. So once you get those two things installed, the only other thing I would recommend going ahead and doing is downloading the VirtualBox extension pack. It can kind of help things run a little bit better. So you just click on this link right here, it downloads, and it's in VirtualBox. VirtualBox will walk you through the installation process of that, so it's not too difficult. Okay, so once you get all that stuff settled there, we can go ahead and head into the VirtualBox Manager, and you're going to click on this new button right here. Now you can see that this looks quite different compared to version 6, and that's okay. So there's a new way it kind of automates the installation. I'm not a big fan of that. I'd still rather do it myself. So what I'm going to do is, first off, we're just going to name our virtual machine. This is the name that's going to appear where you just saw my Windows 8.1 appearing. That's where it's going to appear. So just name it something easy, recognizable, Windows 11 or Windows 11 Home Edition Pro, you know, whatever you want to put there. But I like to just keep it simple, Windows 11. Totally fine. This is the default folder where it's going to store all of your virtual machine files on your host computer. On a Mac, of course, it's going to throw it into your users folder. It's going to probably do about the same on a Windows device. I typically just leave it where it is. You don't really have to change it. because you're not typically going to be accessing that file anyways. So I just like to leave it right there. Right here is where you can select the ISO image and kind of do that more automated install. So if I were to select it right there, it would start going. I don't want to do that, like I said. And then down here, it should automatically recognize that we're installing Windows and Windows 11 based on the name that you typed it up there. Click on Next, and this is where we're going to start basically going through the process. So first one here, it is important to note that Windows 11 is a lot more of a kind of resource-hungry version of Windows. It's not like Windows 10. There are a lot more basic hardware requirements. And I remember when Windows 11 came out, we had to kind of work around some different things like, was it TPM and different things, or I might have said that wrong. I don't remember. There was a few different hardware things that had to be there, and VirtualBox wouldn't recognize it, so it wasn't working. So we had to kind of trick it to thinking that it was in there. But with VirtualBox 7, they've implemented all that stuff to make it good now. The only issue, however, is, like I said, you have more beefy system requirements. So Windows 11 requires 4 gigs of memory. So that's why we have 4096 megabytes set right here. Your memory, it's kind of tough to say. You need at least 4 gigs. You need that 4 gigs of RAM to run Windows 11 pretty decently. Honestly, you probably need more than that, but you've got to do whatever your host machine has. So you can see my computer has a total of 16 gigs of RAM. I wouldn't recommend going more than half of this, so I wouldn't go over 8 on my computer, because you still want macOS to run, or your host operating system to run smoothly. So the good news though is you can change that at any time. So we'll just leave that at 4 gigs of RAM for now. Same thing with the processors. This is a quad-core CPU on my Mac. You may have way more than that, you might have less than that, but Windows 11 requires at least 2 CPUs, so that's why you see it set right there. And then this box has to be checked for Windows 11 to even start, so you need to have that one checked right there. Like I said though, you can play around with this configuration later in the settings, and I'll show you where to access that so you can find the perfect amount for you. So don't freak out thinking it has to be set perfectly right now. So we're going to hit the next button. Next thing here we're going to take a look at is virtual hard disk. So just like a normal computer, you're going to need to create a virtual hard disk. Obviously we're not using a hard disk that's physical. This is just going to create a file on your computer, which is actually in that folder we talked about earlier, in your users folder. And this is where you select your size. So Windows 11 recommends 80 gigs. I'm actually not too sure about what the size is for that. For me personally, bare minimum on virtual machines, I go 64 gigs. But on Windows 11, I feel like we need to bump it up a little more. So I'm probably just going to do like 128 for this. And that's just a personal preference of mine. You don't have to do it like that. You can do less, but I would probably do at least the 80 since that's what it recommends. The good news is you may be freaking out. You're thinking, oh no, it's going to take all that storage. It's not going to take all that storage unless you check this box right here. If you check that box right there, it may make your machine run better, but over time, as you use storage, it'll just store all the way up to 128 gigs. So if I create this virtual machine and I only ever use 50 gigs of it, that's all that's going to be taken up on my own host machine hard drive. Now this part you cannot change after you configure it, so really consider what you want that to be right there. So it's always a good idea to go a little bit more just to be on the safe side. So let's go ahead and hit next again, and it's going to give you kind of a quick summary of what you just did. We'll hit finish, and now we have our virtual machine Now we can go up here to the settings and we can kind of look around a little bit and see some things in here. There's really nothing to worry about in general, but when you go under system, this is where I was talking about. You can change your RAM right here. You can also change your processor right here, and that is nice to see. I always like to uncheck floppy because we're not going to need that. And most of this other stuff you see is already preset, like for example secure boot. That was one of the things Windows 11 likes to see. So most of this is already preset because it knows what operating system you're installing, so you really don't have to change too much. The only things you would want to change and adjust to get right would be your RAM, your CPUs, and then if you go under display, you can also do video memory. So you may want to enable 3D acceleration and bump up your video memory. That can make things run better as well. But those are really the only 3 items that I would recommend you kind of tinker with over time to get where you want it to be. We're going to hit OK on that, save our settings, and now what we can do is go ahead and click on the Start button. So the first thing it's going to prompt us for is that ISO file. It's probably going to give us an error to kick things off here because it doesn't see that ISO file. So let's go ahead and give it a moment to start up, and you're going to notice that this is acting really kind of slow, and the reason for that is I am screen recording. So the screen recording is already taking up a lot of CPU usage, so that's why we're kind of running a little bit slower. We're probably pegging this little baby Intel Core processor in this 2018 MacBook Air. We honestly might have to do the rest of this video filmed with the iPhone just so we can get through it faster, but let's go ahead and give it a second here and see if it boots up. Okay, and as expected we have an error, so what we're going to do is select right here. We're going to go to, so you're going to just locate wherever that file was that you downloaded, the ISO file. Here it is. Hit open. It's going to go ahead and mount that. And once it does that, you can click on this mount and retry boot button. And now it's going to reboot the VM and it's going to load that ISO file that we just put in there. So you're going to hit the button to boot from the CD. Just literally hit any key. Alright, so we have now booted up into the Windows 11 installation. Might have to resize your window just a tad. But yeah, the first thing here is just going to confirm your language and your keyboard and your time, and you're just going to click next whenever you confirm all that information there. And you're going to see this install now button right here. Just go ahead and click on that. First thing it's going to ask you, of course, is if you want to activate Windows before you install it. If you have a product key, I guess you can go ahead and put that in there, but if you're like most of us, you probably don't have a product key, so you just want to click on the I don't have a product key. And when you do that, it's just going to prompt you to select the version of Windows that you would like to install. So obviously you can just pick whichever one you like to pick here. For me personally, I like to choose Pro version of Windows 11, and I also like to choose the N version. The reason why I do that is because it doesn't have a lot of the extra kind of apps and things installed that you don't necessarily need. So for me, I just like to choose a Windows 11 Pro N. But you can scroll through this list and you can choose whichever one you would like. So that's what we're going to do, Windows 11 Pro N, and then you're going to hit next. And then the next thing we're going to do is agree to the licensing terms after you read them all, of course. So once you read all those terms and conditions, you'll hit the little accept checkbox and then you'll click on next yet again. And then it's going to ask you which type of installation, and what you want to do on this one is do not click on upgrade. What you want to do is click on the custom here, since we're not actually upgrading. This is a clean install. So click on custom, and once you click on custom, you'll notice that whatever that hard drive size that you configured earlier when we were setting this thing up, it will appear here on this screen. So you can see it says drive 0 unallocated space, and then it says that right there. Now some people, when they're doing this, they like to click on new and make a new partition and all that stuff. I don't really see the need to do that. Just make sure it's selected right there, and then just hit the next button yet again. And once you do that, it will actually begin the installation of Windows 11. Okay, so here we go. It's going to go through copying some files, installing things, and then it's going to go through some restarts and different screens. And then eventually we were going to end up on a Windows setup screen where we can start plugging in some information before we head to the desktop. So let's go ahead and let this install. Alright, I know this is a little bit different here, but we can't screen record because it is just really struggling. This is a 2018 MacBook Air. The processor is, I guess it just can't handle Ventura or VirtualBox 7, but it's probably honestly just Windows 11 itself, because the system requirements are so much higher and it's using a lot more of the Mac's resources. So we're just going to finish out the rest of this video by recording with the iPhone. So basically, we're here on the setup screen. It's going to just ask you a whole bunch of random questions to kind of get your computer set up the way you want it. So I'm going to go ahead and go through this, and I'm only going to show you the parts where you may want to know something about. So literally, first question, just ask about your region, and it'll ask you keyboard layouts and different things like that. So I'll come back once I get to a certain area. Okay, so here is the part that I was going to show you guys. So basically, Windows 11 likes to force you to use a Microsoft account. So I'm not sure if this is able to be done on Windows Home editions, but I know for certain on Pro, which is the one I chose to install, you can bypass that Microsoft account. So basically what you do is when you get to this screen, you select the one that says set up for work or school instead of clicking on the one that says to set up for personal use, and then you'll just hit the next button down here. So you're going to get to this screen right here, but it still is going to ask you to sign into a Microsoft account, but you now have two options here. So you have a sign in with a security key, and then you have this other one that says sign in options. So what you're going to do is click on the one that says sign in options, and then you're going to notice that there's an option here now that says domain join instead, and that's the one that you want to go ahead and select. Domain join is just like how we've done forever, where you just create a computer account that's local. It's not connected to the cloud or a Microsoft account or anything like that. So that's nice that you can still have that option here. And then it just wants you to, of course, enter your name here. So you just do that, and then we'll just keep going through the process. Okay guys, so after you answer all those different setup questions, you will be greeted with the Windows 11 desktop. So there you go. Now there's one more thing we need to do before we can start using our Windows 11 here, and that's actually install the VirtualBox Guest Editions. So in order to do that, what you want to do is you want to find wherever your Devices tab is. On a Mac, it's up here in the menu bar, and then you want to go down here where it says Insert Guest Editions CD image, and you just want to click on that. And what that's going to do is insert the installation file into your basically virtual hard drive here. So to find that, we're going to go into the File Explorer down here, and once the File Explorer opens up, you can see down here under this PC, you can see that in the CD drive is the VirtualBox Guest Editions. So we'll go ahead and click on that. I don't know why that just disappeared. And you want to scroll down until you find the file that says VBox Windows Editions, and you just want to double click on that to open up the installer window. And now we're going to go through this like we would any other installation. So you're just going to hit next a few times, and then you'll hit install, and it will begin the installation process. So go ahead and give this a moment. Alright guys, and there we go. So that was the final step. Once it gets done installing, it'll tell you to click on restart, and once you do that, you will be restarted into Windows 11. And if you notice, our screen takes up, well, our Windows 11 virtual machine now takes up the entire screen. So whether you do full screen or you just have a certain window, it will adjust accordingly. So that is pretty nice. You can also see after we installed the guest editions that our cursor is a lot more responsive. As far as Windows being more responsive, it's a little bit better. But again, my specs on this MacBook Air are just, I guess, not good enough for Windows 11 nowadays. But anyways guys, that's all I got for you today. Thank you guys for watching the channel on this video. If you have any questions or issues that come up during your install, be sure to leave them in the comments down below. I've probably seen that error before, and I probably know how to fix it. So I'll try to help you as best as I can. But anyways guys, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching the channel, and I will catch you all in the next video.